And we're starting, and this hangout is on air live. Hey, welcome to the Beer Whisperer Pub. How the heck are you? Woo! Anyways, as usual, we don't have a theme. We're just hanging out at the pub. I'm starting off with a Shadow Rock Stout from a local brewery of mine, White River. It's an 8%. The bottle says 7.5, although at the brewery it says 8%. They call it MPS Stout. I don't have the IBUs handy. I'm going to pour it as I keep talking, though I haven't poured it yet. We don't have a set topic here because this is a pub conversation. But joining me at the pub for this session of fine drinking is Scott White from Ohio from Beer Geek Beer Reviews and Rhode Island Red Rooster. You guys say hi.
How's it going, man?
So,
Hello, folks.
Hey, Red. So, Scotty, you and I were talking just a tad off air before we, opened the pub officially. You've got some Sam Adams Utopias. Tell me about that, man.
That I do. I've been sitting here sipping on it throughout the evening. I'll be, sampling another pour throughout the evening. I most people are just like it. It is insane to pay. What I paid for this was up in Boston. Matter of fact, it was right outside of the Patriots Stadium when I went into a beer store, and I paid $1.99.
Wow.
And it was just like, but because of the bottle tax, I was like, they're like, so it's actually $200.05. And I'm like, oh well, okay, sure, shoot me the bill. I can't get it where I live, but I mean, with the flavor complexity that this beer has, and yes, it is a beer. It is actually generally brewed as an American strong ale, and then they just blend it with some of the barrel-aged beer that they have, which happens to be like Sam Adams Triple Bock, Sam Adams Millennium, just some experimental beers that they've brewed within the same strong beer that I mentioned, and it turned out very, very well. Anybody that loves the flavors of maple, port, cognac, dark cherries, sherry notes. This has it all. I truly adore this beer, and I think that it is worth every single penny that they say that it's worth. I have also heard from representatives from the beer company and people that work in the Boston Brewing Company. They say that they make no money whatsoever off of this beer because of the fact that by the time that you are paying for the decanter and the liquid that is inside, they say they just pretty much make base money off of it.
Huh, that's interesting. It was in my neighborhood. Last time it was for sale in my neighborhood, it ran for about 2.25, and I didn't buy it. This year, a place didn't put the bottle for sale, but they were selling 1-ounce pours for $20, and I couldn't make myself do that.
And like we talked about before, like I said, I went ahead and I will definitely show off the bottle as well. I had the 10th anniversary, and it came out in 2012. It always comes out in the end of November, beginning of December, and when that one came out for around Christmas time that year, there was a place in Rochester, New York, that was actually selling off 2-ounce pours for $24. I don't think that is a bad offer. Generously more than the $20 for a 1-ounce.
Yeah, that was a little much for me, man. I gotta tell you. So, Red, what are you drinking tonight?
Well, I actually have a bottle of Sam Adams Triple Bock, the 1994 Brew Reserve, and that is the first year that came out.
Oh,
But
great.
I'm going to drink that a little later, and we'll get into that a little later.
God, I love
I was never able to keep any vintages on hand. I always drank them all up. But luckily, a friend of mine actually gave one to me for my birthday last year, and I've been waiting to crack it, and I cracked it. But right now I'm starting off with an IPA from Green Flash, out of San Diego. Green Flash, I don't know if you know this, guys, but they're building the second brewery. I'm not sure if it's almost finished, and I can't remember when they're actually going to open it, but it's in Virginia Beach, Virginia. So all the East Coast will be getting the Virginia Beach Green Flash, so we're happy about that in the Commonwealth of Virginia. This beer is called Soul Style IPA, and it says Bright Tropical. It's brewed with Simcoe, Citra, and Cascade. Comes in at 6.5% alcohol by volume, and it's 75 IBUs. It does what it says it is. It's definitely very citrus and very tropical. I'm getting on the nose lots of lemon peel, grapefruit, mango, fresh peach. The palate delivers more of the same. It's got a little bit of pale and sweet maltiness that kind of carries the hop flavors from the nose on into the palate and into a very bitter grapefruit pith, grapefruit rind bitterness that really lingers. Now, these type of beers, to me, are a good example of IPA. This one is actually good till May of 2016, so it's pretty fresh, but after May, I'll still be able to drink it because, IPA is meant to age. You don't have to drink IPA super fresh. But I get this, I'm starting to say these are kind of almost a sub-style of what IPA really is. I think this isn't really what IPA is all about, though there is range within the style, don't get me wrong. But I don't know if I could sit and drink one after the other of this one. I like this very much, but it's bitter. It's tropical fruit. It's lemony. It's citrusy, and it's bitter. So to me, it's a little lacking. I'd like a little more malt backbone. I'd like a little more pale maltiness. I'd like a little more sweetness. I'm not really complaining about the type of hops they use. I like the big hop punch in the nose, in the actual palate itself, and in the finish. But one or two of these, and in my mouth is still just tasting the residual bitterness. I want to move on to something else. So to each their own. But for me, just one or two of these, and I wouldn't want to. Let's put it this way: I like this beer a lot, but I don't think I would want to drink it all night long.
Yeah, you know what? I think a lot of those are kind of designed to be one and done, don't you think? I mean, a lot of them just hit you so hard. They're so one-dimensional. There's others too. Boulevard, the Calling IPA, kind of hit me that way. I mean, it's a double IPA. I thought the first one I had it on tap, and I really loved it. I bought a 4-pack and took it home, and by the time I got to the last beer of the 4-pack, I was really tired of it. I just had palate fatigue. You think those are just designed to be one-and-done beers?
It could be. I mean, but I can't complain. Again, Green Flash is such a great brewery, and I've had so many tremendous beers from them. Now, on the other hand, their stout, I could drink this stout all night long.
The double black stout?
Double stout. I mean, I know it's strong. I know it's big.
Yeah. No, I agree. That thing is awesome.
And that's got some great bitterness in it as well, not just from the hops. I could drink that beer all night long. This one, not so much, but it's a world-class beer. It's a great beer. It's a great brewery. And I think we've talked about this before. We're very jaded. If I have to complain about drinking a very hoppy beer, I don't have much.
You're right. I
don't have much to complain about.
I just think so many of those are just designed to be a one and done. You drink one, you put it away, then you got to have a palate cleanser, then you can go back. But yeah, I think a lot of those are just designed to drink one. Because I don't. If you have 2 or 3 in a row, can you really taste that second and third one?
Well, that's what's happening, Tom. You just really just tasting bitterness. After a while, it's just all I'm getting is bitterness, and the bitterness continues to linger and linger. So it's great. Like I said, I've got little to complain about. if I'm complaining about a very
It's a
hot,
great beer, but we're
very
gonna
well-made beer. So
That's the reason why I decided to pull up this photo. I mean,
there you go. Yeah.
once you mention Green Flash, I mean, the one person that I know that comes to mind, I don't know if you gentlemen know or are friends with one of these, this said person on Facebook, but Ashley B. Routson. She wrote a book called The Beer Wench. And she has gone through a lot of craft beer, and she wrote a book about it. But she is a representative for Green Flash.
I am familiar with her. I'm not friends with her on Facebook. I know
Yeah, I
she's a
have
beer
her on
girl.
Facebook too, Scott.
I know she's been around for a while now. At least I want to say at least 10 years, or
Yeah.
maybe a little less than that. But yeah, she definitely has become an industry insider type deal, and she knows her stuff. No doubt about that.
Yeah, and then she's like always, all the time, man. Every time I post something up about Green Flash, she likes it, she comments about it. But
Very good.
she had mentioned the beer that you're having this evening, and that's what just kind of triggered that thought process, and it was just like, oh, well, I correlated it with her, and was like, she told me about it a few weeks ago, and she told me to check it out.
Well, it's definitely worth checking out. I mean, if you like these tropical fruit, very bright citrus type of IPAs that people want to drink super fresh and right away, people will like this one. I think it'll stay good for a while. I could drink this a year from now, and I bet you it's still very, very hot, very good.
Yeah, I agree.
The character might change a little, but not so drastically.
It's going to change. It's going to probably balance out a tad.
Yeah, and again, it's 6.5% alcohol by volume and 75 international bitterness units. I mean, this isn't Berliner Weiss or mild. This isn't this is a beer that's going to keep.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, let me tell you a little bit about this one I'm drinking here real quick. The Shadow Rock Stout. It's from a local brewery to me. It's meant to be an FES stout. They put on the label generous amounts of roast barley, chocolate malt, make this a rich, complex stout. And I got to tell you, I love this one. It's one of my favorites when it comes out about this time every year. I think it's from January to March. It's got just huge, huge, huge chocolate on the nose, like a big dark chocolate. Also, you do get hints of coffee. Now, I had it at the brewery, and at the brewery I was getting just slight notes of anise, and I'm not getting that in the bottle, so it's probably just my taste buds at the time. But oh my gosh, it's just a beautiful example of the stock. Because you get that big rush of chocolate early on, you get the coffee on the backside, then it dries up with big earthy hops. It's just a very nice FES. It just finishes perfectly dry. It's just what you want. It's not as hoppy as a lot of FESs out there. It's probably closer to traditional than what most Americans are doing. But White River is one of those breweries. They're not getting into that hop war fight. They're just not doing that. They're just making solid beers, and I'm just a fan of the brewery and this beer.
Are you getting any sourness in that, Tom? Because FES really should have a little touch of sourness.
Just a touch right at the end. Yeah, not as much as, let's say, the Guinness, right? Because the Guinness adds a little sour beer to theirs.
Yeah, that should have a little sourness in that one as well. FES really is.
It's a little dry, just very light at the end, but again, not as much as the Guinness.
Okay, because I know that the Guinness FES, that's available on the market here, it has a little sourness in it, and a lot of people think sour isn't a good thing. Well, maybe not a lot of people anymore because, of course, how popular sours have become. But sourness isn't necessarily a bad thing. Sourness can be a good thing in beer.
It's not sour in the sense of drinking a sour, but there is that touch. You're drinking a stout. It's a little bit different. It's not that sour type sour, if you're following me.
Exactly, and that should be, and that's appropriate in a foreign extra stout.
It's almost like an over bitterness unit that it almost changes to a sour.
Yeah. I think Scott's hit the nail on the head right there. Yeah.
Because I mean, when you correlate, stouts, most people think, well, the general knowledge of the stout is that you're going to drink this black beer that's going to be roasty, toasty, chocolate, coffee, maybe a bit earthy. But when you drink an FES, it's just like, especially when you use the example of Guinness. I mean, oh my God, I love the Guinness FES. It was just amazing.
Yeah, I do too. I gotta tell you.
And I wish I could get it more in my area, because I mean, you get all of the above. I mean, you get that roasty, toasty, chocolate, maybe a little bit of coffee that you're used to from a Guinness, but at the same time, it's nice, smooth, and you get that little bit of extra bitterness that it almost kind of turns sour note because of all the tartness and the chocolate and all those flavors combining as one.
Yes, and it's like almost a lactic, acidic sourness to it.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah.
God, I see you got the Scotch ale. Why don't you clue us in on that one, because I'm very excited about trying that one again. So give us a little bit about this one.
Well, first off, I mean, you guys, especially being the younger one of the group, you guys have had the original version of this, the Sam Adams, Scotch ale, and
hey, Red, is he inferring that we're old?
Yeah,
I think he is.
I'm referring that I started young. How's that?
No, okay, there you go. Okay, we're gonna let you get by with that, pup. Go ahead, keep going.
But I mean, this beer has been out for quite some time. I mean, it was originally brought up in the late '90s and carried over into the early 2000s, and I was always interested in the styles. One of my very first actual Scotland beers was the Trecor House Ale, which is the Wee Heavy.
That's world class, that beer.
And
world class beer.
God, I loved it. I fell in love with that beer so much that it's disappeared from my market. I can't find it anymore. And when they said, Sam Adams had said, okay, we're going to hold this voters appreciation contest, and you can vote for what beer had come back. You got to pick 4 beers, you got to pick 3 beers, you got to pick 2 beers, and then in the final one, I was like, okay, first off, I missed this one. So therefore, I voted for it, as many of other people had voted for it. It came back, and it was just released in their cabin pack, which is the seasonal pack for this year. As you can see, it holds that nice, true, Scotch ale, kind of red ale look to it. Mm-hmm. As for aromas, I mean, just go ahead and agitate it a little bit. You can see that it's got a nice, brilliant white, almost off yellow head to it. And what you can smell is you can smell a big earthiness. You can smell a little bit of a hint of smoke, especially out of this bottle. Main point to this beer is a load of caramel. You can definitely smell the caramel malt coming out of this beer. So darn well, once you get into this beer, you're going to get nothing but a load of big malty caramel and a little bit of smoke. But once you get a sip of it, everything kind of changes because of the sheer fact that, like we were talking about before when we kind of hinted at this beer, it does have a big earthiness. There's a little bit of smoke in the back end of it.
Is the smoke overwhelming? In your opinion, is the smoke overwhelming?
No. It doesn't taste to me when you talk about. Let's take an example for smoked beers. Rossbers. No, definitely not, because those tend to have a almost like a bacon quality to them. Because when you get like an aged bottle of a Ronchber, you kind of get that smoky bacon flavor. With this, no. You're getting a hint of smoke. You're definitely getting that big, kind of like grassy, earthy. I hate to say it this way, but kind of dirt. I mean, when I talk about earthiness, it's almost like a dirty, earthy, like you went out and, got a handful of dirt and got that aroma
Okay.
off of
That
the
doesn't
dirt.
sound appealing, but okay.
Well, that makes sense because peat is from the earth. But to make a point, route beer is it's beechwood smoked
Yeah.
malt.
Right,
So
right.
there's a lot of difference. I mean, route beer really is intensely smoky, and
Yeah.
peat smoke and beechwood smoke are two different animals entirely. Now, I've heard that the new version of the Scotch ale has a lot of smoke, and it's a lot more smoky than the one in the 90s. But that's one opinion, and I've heard other opinions saying, it's malty, smoky. I have to make that decision for myself. I remember this beer quite well because I drank quite a bit of it. So we've got some people that we know that have said it's the smoke is a little too much this time. That they've gone overboard on the peat smoke. But then I'm reading a couple reviews of people that I know and trust, and they're telling me that it's not overpowering and it's kind of balanced, but you definitely get lots of malt and lots of smoke. So the only way for me to make an informed decision is to go out and try it myself, and I will definitely be doing that.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
would
I think
say
it's going to
pick it
depend
up
on how much
a
you
little
like smoke. I mean, I think if you if you're a fan of the big smoke, I think you're going to dig it.
Right, and like I was suggesting, if you're able to pick it up in a single bottle at a bottle shop, pick up a bottle or two and give it a good run through. But this bottle here, it's loads of malt. I mean, you get a load of caramel malt, maybe some carafa to add into the color
Yeah,
and the
okay.
flavor. But at the same time, I mean, this is more malt forward than it is smoky forward.
Well, I think for me, when I drink Scotch ales or I drink Scottish ales, what I want in that is I want it to be very, very malty, and I want
Yeah,
peat.
I
The
agree.
ones that do use peat smoked malt, I want that to complement the beer. I want the peat smoked malt to be in the background, to linger, but I don't want it to be dominant. So
And I think
this isn't a smoked beer. This is a Scotch ale, and it's got to have some. If they use peat smoke, great. I think using peat smoke in a Scotch ale is appropriate, and I think it's fantastic. But you don't want peat smoke to dominate. So again, I'll be very interested to try this one.
And I agree with you on your assessment for that because of the fact that when I'm sitting here and you know how the beer lingers, the after flavors and whatnot, and you sit there and kind of like do your lip smacking because of the fact that it's just so good and you got that leftover flavor in your mouth. And that's where I really pick up on the big peat smoke and the earthiness and the grassiness, and it's just like, and you can still get that.
That sounds interesting. So, Red, you still working on that IPA?
I am actually. So I'm going to get into the triple box shortly. How are we doing on time, Tom?
Well, I think the pub's going to close in about 10 minutes.
All right, we might have to carry that over to the next one. I'll have the triple bock over there.
Why don't we do that? So, hey, Scotty, so talk to me, buddy. You had the Utopias, you had the Scotch Ale. What are some final thoughts you'd like to add?
Final thoughts. If you guys haven't had the Sam Adams, the cabin pack yet, I would give it a go. I mean, I definitely like the offers that it has to offer because of the fact that it comes with the Escape route, it comes with Cold Snap, it comes with a new beer called Session Ale, which is an ESB. I've already had that. That's why I picked up another pack to do a review of it. It's especially coming from my favorite beer company. It's a very good and interesting pack to do because of the fact that we're just getting, here in Ohio, we're getting out of winter-ish because of the fact that we've had such a warm winter that we're just now getting the snow. But as we're, getting out of winter, and, we're getting it all, and it's just like, okay, we're looking towards bigger, brighter, better beers instead of the darker, more earthier tones. And I think this is very appropriate. And being able to sit here and be able to sample on the Utopias, it just makes it that much more better.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I got to be honest, guys. Here in the Ozarks in Missouri, we had a 60-degree day here.
Nice.
50 here today, Tom, in the D.C. metro area.
Damn.
So
Damn,
10 degrees colder.
Something in your neck of the woods.
It was 38 up here.
That's awesome.
It's going to decline through the weekend, and they're talking about snow next week. But I got to tell you, it's been a relatively mild winter here in my neck of the woods.
Same here, and I've got about another 2 months before I get like Scott and start wanting something a little more lively and springy. I'm still deep and heavy into the big, strong winter beers, stouts, porters, barley wines, doubles, triples. I mean, this is where I'm loving all these ones.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Scott, now it's got Boston Lager in that too, right?
Oh, of course. I mean,
well, yeah, they put that in everything.
Right.
Yeah, it's not.
With the company that's their main beer, they want to remain as a continuous craft beer, and as the industry's guidelines, which are crap.
I understand why they do what they do and why they keep the Boston Lager in there. I mean, a lot of times these 12-packs are introductory to people that have never drank craft beer, so I think it's important that they do keep the Boston Lager in there.
Right.
I don't necessarily 100% agree with that because I really think Boston Ale should get play in every single 12-pack.
And I've suggested that they take out one of the Boston Lagers and add one of the ale.
Yeah, that's what I would say. One Boston Lager, one Boston Ale. I don't think people realize how good Boston Ale is, and the reason they don't is because Boston Ale, for whatever reason, has become very hard to find. You don't really see 6-packs of it. You really got to look for it. On draft, I haven't seen it on draft in years. Now, when I lived in New England, it was pretty accessible, and this was in the 90s and everything, and I could find Boston Ale a lot more. I love Boston Lager, but I was more of a Boston Ale drinker than I was a Boston Lager drinker. And it's a shame. It's a shame to me that Boston Ale does not get more publicity. It doesn't get pushed more because that beer is a phenomenal beer.
It is, and it's still what you said in the 90s when it was accessible. It is still up in Massachusetts. It's still that accessible. That was the first time when I was up there this year that I had ever seen a 12-pack of Boston Ale.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
But you can't go wrong with Boston Lager. I mean, Boston Lager gets knocked around by a bunch of beer geeks, but I tell you what, when I go to the beer wastelands of America, which is getting few and far between, thanks, and I might add, thanks to breweries like the Boston Beer Company that made their beers available in every state and every little place that you go to. I mean, you go to wedding receptions, you go to places that you normally wouldn't find craft beer, and you always find Samuel Adams Boston Lager, and I can't tell you how many times I would have been miserable unless that beer was there. So I love the Boston Beer Company. People know I love it. I'm not going to apologize that I love it. I know it's the ones that ultra beer geeks like to kick around. Well, they can go fuck themselves.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of that, Red, is maybe Scott. I think a lot of that, well, it's not solely that, but I think mostly that is younger guys. I think us older guys grew up with not having beer choices. We saw beer choices. I mean, Boston Lager, when it first came out, was just so, I mean, it was just head and shoulders above anything we could get. It was just so amazing. By today's standards, it is rather tame, but it's a good beer. It's not flawed in any way. I just think a lot of younger beer drinkers kind of miss the nuances of the beer.
And I don't drink it as much as I used to. I'll be honest, but it's probably something that I drink when I go to a place, like I'm out in a restaurant and I'm like, what do you got on tap? And a lot of times, like, well, I got Bud, Miller, Heineken, Sam Adams. Of course, I'm going to choose the Sam Adams.
Right.
But I like buying the 12-packs, and I will buy this cabin pack because I want to try the Scotch Ale. And you know what? I'll drink those 2 bottles of Boston Lager, and I'll be perfectly happy drinking.
How about you, Red? How do you got any final thoughts here on the beers you're drinking?
Again, I'm just enjoying the Soul Style IPA from Green Flash, and again, I'll repeat that it's Simcoe, Citra, and Cascade. It's very hoppy. It's a very delicious beer. I would recommend anybody go out and give it a shot. I think it was six change for a six pack. It was reasonably priced. So this one is still brewed in San Diego, but the Virginia Beach one will be opening shortly, and I'll say goodbye to the California brewed ones and welcome the East Coast ones. So yeah, drink Green Flash, great brewery.
Yeah, I agree with you on that stout. That stout is gorgeous.
Scott, what do you want to say?
On to the next.
We had dead air for a second. Don't let it do that.
Any closing statements?
As for closing statements, the only thing that I have to say, personally, is that everybody needs to drink great, amazing craft beer. Why? Because of the sheer fact that our grandfathers, or the older gentlemen's beers, are boring. So don't hate beer, any beer, because of the fact that it is honestly brewed. Now, whether it is a generalized Bud Miller or Coors, that's their style. If it is Sam Adams, that's their style. It's Great Lakes, that's their style. It's all good beer. So enjoy.
No, it's not. we'll get into that later.
So, yeah, see, Scott, you just opened a can of worms for another video. So I'm going to stop that right there because that's a whole other fight we just started. No, so I did want to say that, yeah, I agree with Red. I love that Green Flash stout. Green Flash does make some solid beers. I'm a fan of my local beers, as I think we all are, right? We all like our local breweries. Isn't that awesome?
It is awesome. Drink local whenever you can.
So here's my thing, and I'm going to continue with Scott's fight just a little bit. When people tell me, well, if they make great beer, why does it matter that's a big conglomerate? You guys want to just, we got 5 minutes left, so either one of you jump in. Why does it matter?
To me, it don't. I mean, with all like the BMC's buying up all these people, and unless they're actually going to change the recipes because of the fact that they have, but if they don't, really, does it matter?
So, Red, well, what's your answer to that question? Does it matter if a big conglomerate buys a little guy?
It does matter. It matters to me, and I'll tell you why. For me, I don't want to be supporting big multinational corporations unless I. Wait a minute. Let me rephrase. I don't want to be supporting big multinational corporations in the brewing industry when I know certain big multinational corporations are actively campaigning to do things to limit distribution, to do whatever they're doing, to wipe some independence out. That's why it matters to me.
I'm with you 100%. Yep.
For me, I like to support local independent breweries. I like to support craft breweries. I like to support nano breweries. I don't have a problem supporting some of the bigger ones, but if I can avoid them and find alternatives, I do, especially ones like AB InBev. Yeah. I try to avoid AB InBev products at all costs. I don't agree with a lot of their business practices, and we've talked about this before, Tom. I don't think being a giant corporation is inherently evil. It isn't necessarily a bad thing. Yeah. But for me, I want to support local first. I want to support small first. I want to support independence first. It's like going to, your local diner versus going to some kind of chain restaurant. Okay, yeah. The chain places are great. Okay, some of them could put out some really good food. I get it. All right, but if I have the choice between going to a chain restaurant and going to a little family business that's been, putting out phenomenal food for the past 40, 50 years, guess what? I'm going to go to the little independent place first, And you know, hey, if I get a gift card to a chain place, sure, I'll go to the chain place.
Yeah, you know what? I agree. And that's what I say. I don't necessarily boycott these breweries. I'm going to buy Ballast Point because I just did. But, yeah, I am going to support the smaller guys almost every time. So, hey, I am Tom the Beer Whisperer. I want to thank everybody that's joined us for this session. Thanks, Scotty, for coming in. You youngster, you. I want to thank Red Rooster for joining me. You controversial guy, you. I want to thank myself for being here because, you know, it's the new millennium and I love myself. I'm just happy with everything I do. So I'm Tom the Beer Whisperer and we'll talk to you all later.